Fast forward, GH Politics Urban. Podcast also trying to make headlines. And I jemre na EDB Exum Ewaha, and EDM Braximus, and then AD Kanya. Best say ubit a subscribe to the channel. Omaria say ubit me I take on the notification bell. Share na a front so answer into me and Kemi. And EDM, and a Braximu. Mami emfawo enwura eye political highways nim eja dema onua enye asempoto akra na ne nyina ne se eye Dr. Kamel eye communicator Dr. Kamel next na watimi abawura eye EC aso eye Jen Mensa na wakyerek se Jen Mensa wuyi petition na wadwuma yeni no a petition His Excellency John Dramani Mahama say when you trust Yakunyano. We in flu hokrampa ye wo enough grounds be bra and say utna office ho say we get eduma na apay ejemre ebo nchirimu echere say dubious means o fact so say enkananado dankwa Akuffo Addo ene eye na mayekuo no ebetimi atra eye tumi so perpetuity ni nyina papai ajemre abra obayi nchiremu ewo chana yiso chana so am say haxi GH Politics Urban onua yebonwram na yenhwe ne yekọ ene de yeba bedax se wajemre ewo ha.
Here I used to be a very regular panel member of early discussions. It's good to be back again, and I hope to be more regular this time after this second coming. We would have to look at this petition within the context of the attempt at state capture by Addo and his cabal in the NPP. And what we are witnessing today, the Electoral Commission as it is constituted today, at the apex of it, is one of the last remnants of that dubious legacy of state capture. And under normal circumstances, even without this petition, there were enough grounds to question the legitimacy of their continuous stay in office. One, because they supervised the most dubious election, probably, in the entire history of Ghana. And it was part of that conspiracy to perpetuate the Addo cabal in government. So, under normal circumstances, those arguments alone were enough to ask for them to step down or to move away from the scene because of the potential of their, they almost threw the country over the cliff into a confrontation that would have plunged the country into civil strife. We were all witnesses to the electoral violence that took place in earlier elections, in which lives were lost. And it was clearly an attempt to manipulate the process. So when we hear Afenya Makin today making reference to judicial manipulation, I think we'll be coming to that. One wonders whether he has any sense of history. Because when we look at the democratic process, all the institutions, the structures are supposed to maintain a certain democratic stability. There has to be accountability, separation of powers, and competition for political office arbitrated by an impartial entity known as an electoral commission, which should be neutral. But over the years, with the inception of this electoral commission, we have seen that when Nana Addo came to power, one of his first actions was to take the necessary measures to ensure a perpetuity of his faction of the MPP to rule. So what did they do? The first was to remove Charlotte Osei under very dubious circumstances, and the imposition of someone clearly associated with the NPP, and adding someone who was directly linked to the NPP political party as a structure, and even served in a political capacity in the NPP organizational structure. You remember once he made a comment, is it Asari, something with that the deputy commissioner, he made a comment to the effect, Bosman Asari. He made a comment to the effect that the NDC was a threat to democracy. When, in fact, the opposite was the case. An electoral commissioner who is supposed to be neutral will make such a comment, which was, in the first place, fundamentally flawed, and secondly, you are already antagonizing one of the political factions or one of the political groups that are supposed to participate in the democratic process. Then we also witnessed, a very dubious redemarcation of electoral lines, in order to reconfigure the electoral map to favor a particular political party and to affect the opposition party at that time. Then we saw how the judiciary was also manipulated. All were calculated to perpetuate, as I did indicate earlier, the Nana Addo faction's rule. So it became clear towards the election in 2020, the tensions were very high. And I remember putting up, an article that titled, that June 4th, was a bastard, but the bitch that bore him was 8 months pregnant when we were moving into the 2020 election. And we just needed a little spark to trigger the inevitable, chaos. And it turned out that when it did happen, and I'm still on the 2020 election, I'll come to the 24 election, and then dovetail into the petition. What prevented the country from sliding into chaos in 2020 was the maturity of the opposition party, the NDC, and especially its leader then, John Dramani Mahama. There was a clear case of electoral robbery presided over by this electoral commission. We are all aware of the number of figures. Up to now, we don't know the exact, figure that we could point to validate the electoral victory of Nana Addo in 2020. The Electoral Commission is, backpedaled on a number of occasions and, tripped over its own figures. And finally, the thing went to court. The NDC, in a very mature way, decided to contest the thing in court. And we're very sure that what they were holding were the dangling protuberances of the animal. Okay? They were very sure that, and they wanted to prove to the judges that the animal was actually a male. And they had the evidence for that. And we know what happened in court. And that this Electoral Commission did not plunge the country into chaos was the result of the maturity of the NDC and the then flag bearer, President Mahama. And that action or reaction by the NDC reminds us, of stories in the scripture about King Solomon and the two women who were both laying claim to the same baby boy. The false mother, when King Solomon, I'm sure we all know the story, when King Solomon decided to, in his wisdom, determine who was the actual mother of the child, that they were going to split the baby into two. The false mother said, well, if I'll not have the baby, then nobody else should have it. She agreed that the baby should be split. But the actual mother, pleaded with King Solomon to ask his executioners to put the swords back and then entrust the custody of the baby into the hands of the false mother. This was exactly what happened. The NDC, in order to protect the nation, because let's remember, Addo on several occasions had indicated that, or had insinuated that he was ready to plunge the country into chaos, in order to become president. He said, all die be die. And all these things were supervised by this, Electoral Commission. So, barring this petition to get them out, their conduct over the years, their conduct over the years since the inception, despite, irrespective of the dubious nature of their appointments into that position, their conduct suggested that they were very dangerous to the stability of the country. Very dangerous, extremely dangerous to the stability of the country. And by that logic and that argument alone, when things changed and stabilized, they should have been moved. They should have been removed. Just by the fact that in 2020, they mishandled the situation. They were used as tools in the program to capture the state in the agenda to capture the state by the Nana Addo cabal, that it was, it was just prudent that they should move away and let a new team come. One, Ghanaians had lost confidence in them. And if you look at the massive victory that the NDC registered in 2024, it shows how the population regarded the election and how the Ghanaian population was in a hurry to get rid of people. It's also a verdict on the character of the Electoral Commission. So that's the overwhelming victory that the NDC, registered in 2024 is also, a message clearly to the authorities that whoever had helped to perpetuate this monstrosity, the Nanado regime, illegally, doing that illegally, should suffer the consequences. Well, maybe there were no constitutional, ways to do it from the government point of view. I mean, there were, rather there were constitutional ways, legal ways of doing it. But, despite the arguments that this petitioner has put in place, despite the validity of those arguments, I think that the most important argument in this to argue for their removal was the fact that their conduct or misconduct nearly destabilized the country, and what prevented the country from descending into chaos was not they as the arbiter, not they as the neutral referee to mediate between competing parties, but the maturity of one of the contestants who decided to play the role of just, okay, we don't want the country to descend into chaos, you take it. would wait for the next opportunity. And the next opportunity came, and they still wanted to do the same thing. There was still an attempt. And many of the seats that they declared, victory for the MPP, many of them, we can say that the opposition party, all the seats that they won, it's clear, despite the fact that the referee was not on their side. The referee was not on their side. They managed to win through vigilance, and also the fact that the Ghanaian people wanted the incumbent out. And Senna, you see, despite the attempts of the Electoral Commission attempting all this while to impose the Nana Addo's cabal on Ghana, you see, it would have made sense if there was some economic turnover to show for that the democratic tyranny that we were experiencing. If there was some economic benefits to show for that tyranny we were experiencing, despite the fact that it was under facade of democracy. But we saw that the Electoral Commission was assisting to impose on us a kleptocratic government that had very little, next to no interest in responding to the legitimate aspirations of the masses of the people. But they were there just to amass wealth with impunity. And we had an Electoral Commission that just needed to be neutral in order for Ghanaians to get them out peacefully. So if you are not able to do this peacefully, and they continue to perpetrate this, corrupt system, not only, they have just turned corruption into a national sport. And we had a commission that wanted to continue to inflict them on the Ghanaian people. Should we allow them to continue in office? Based on that alone? No. So it's long overdue. They have even, they've overstayed, what they say, well, they are welcome even after the election. After all, when she was compelled, the Electoral Commissioner, Jean Mensah, was compelled to declare, she had no choice. It was clear when she had to declare. She made a comment. What was the final comment? Say it's finished. Yeah, means that what she had come to do, she had been brought in to perpetuate the Nana Addo dynasty. She had failed. That was the agenda she saw. So I interpreted it to mean that she was telling her paymasters that, well, it's finished. The whole, agenda that is finished. So one would have expected that once that agenda you are brought in to fulfill is finished, you failed, the most logical thing was for her to just bow out, okay, and let the process, go on. And if you refuse to bow out, if the other commissioners who assisted her to attempt plunging the country into chaos are still there, there is a need to take the necessary measures, to get them out and then replace them with a more neutral, a commission that can inspire confidence among the Ghanaian people, a commission that actually plays its role as a neutral arbiter in the election process. Otherwise, if we don't let the Ghanaian people, we inculcate that culture, democratic culture, in the Ghanaian consciousness, that elections are very important. It's a very important process in ensuring democratic stability, democratic accountability, so that the country does not slip into chaos. Because in this part of our world, a lot of the civil disturbances that have come, most of them emanate from electoral, disturbances. So, Senna, I would conclude by saying that I'm not so, the legal, challenge, important as it is, as a process, is a very simple, a simpler way of dealing with this monstrosity that has been inflicted on the Ghanaian people with regards to this Electoral Commission, the 3 officers who single-handedly, or together with the Nana Addo cabal, we probably would not have been here organizing this program if their agenda, had succeeded, because there was no way the Ghanaian people were going to accept the perpetuation of the Nana Addo cabal's, agenda, and then the state capture. So I think that the attention should be, on the fact that it was.
We ain't some ahodoa itimi course or channel no so. That's any so body any dia dumbi edomiani. Uni ay besamba rem na yasumo kwanson kusopra. Aha, a GH politics avenue.